Every week, college football games hinge on a single word.
Touchdown. Touchdown, Texas. Touchdown, Oklahoma. Touchdown. Touchdown. Touchdown, Wisconsin. Touchdown. 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 Touchdown, Stanford. Touchdown. Touchdown, Alabama. Touchdown, Notre Dame. Touchdown. Wow.
This is Touchdown Radio. Here's Gino Toretta and Taylor Zarzour.
Yeah, I'm immediately upset with Toretta as we start this show here for week number 2. I asked for years to go to the Iowa State game, and you refused to do it because you said they had a bad booth. It's impossible to call the game there. And where are you going this weekend?
The battle for the Cy-Hawk Trophy.
Come on, man.
You wanted to
Why?
go just because you wanted another pin in the in your Taylor Zarzour. Have I touched every state in
that's true.
This grand land?
That is true. And we did go to Nebraska a few times and land in Omaha, and we were like 2 miles from Iowa. And I said, let's go to Iowa. And you said no. Iowa and South Dakota and Alaska, the only 3 states I've never been to. But you also said never.
You have been to Iowa because Omaha Airport is actually in the state of Iowa.
Yeah, airports don't count. I didn't experience Iowa. I didn't go see Kevin Costner and throw baseballs with Shoeless Joe Jackson. But you did. You said the press box is no good. We can't broadcast there, and now you're doing the game there.
It's an 11 a.m. kick, and I can get home Saturday night. I don't know. That might have affected my decision. So.
Well, are they making a booth for you like they did for Casey and me at the Oregon State game?
I believe, Taylor, they're not making a booth. This would probably take us back to our old University of South Carolina days where it's the roof of the stadium.
You're on the roof?
Yes, I believe so.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Arkansas where you're in the stands, but okay.
It could be that too.
It was an interesting perch you had the other night. You get in these NFL stadiums and you're going to most likely, especially if you're not the home, if you're not national television or the home feed, then you're going to be tucked in a corner somewhere, as I am about to find out by being the voice of the Titans on away games, and looking forward to Denver and wherever I am on Sunday for that. But I saw you in the end zone of Landshark Stadium, Pro Player Stadium, Joe Robbie Stadium, Hard Rock Stadium. How was your vantage point of what I thought was the game of the week in week 1?
Well, first off, the back right corner of Joe Robbie Stadium is an awful vantage point to broadcast a game on. We were right next to the University of Miami radio, which was next to the Notre Dame radio.
Okay.
And to add insult to injury, it's in the opposite corner. So if you look up at the highlights, they're going the opposite direction of where you're actually seeing the team. No. Yeah, so you can't even broadcast on the TV. But I will say it was a hell of an environment. It was hot, stifling. There was not a lot of. I expected more Notre Dame infiltration in the stands, but they were way up in the top of the upper deck, and that was the best Miami environment I've ever been in Hard Rock Stadium.
Wow.
However many years I've been there.
Yeah, you could hear it. I mean, you could sense it on television, certainly. I was driving around listening to JP and you would never know you guys were in the end zone. He's got the best pipes in the business, and he evidently has 2015 vision, or he has great binoculars, because you guys were all over it and crushed it. And Sean and Greg did a very good job on television talking about how great the audience was and just the atmosphere there on a Sunday night. And look, Gino, I don't know what happens from week 1 to week 2. I know there's going to be a huge transition, but that was by far my favorite game of week number 1. I enjoyed South Carolina, Virginia Tech. I thought that was a great watch leading into that. The Beamer Brawl, very happy for Shane and for Frank. That was an emotional situation there in Atlanta. I can't imagine what that was like to go through for the Beamer family. Clemson and LSU on Saturday night was a good watch. Obviously a great second half for the LSU Tigers. But other than that, I have to tell you, I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer here. If anybody that has ever met me They could verify this. I love college football as much as anyone you've ever met that enjoys college football, and I really do. I love it. I got to tell you, these transfers going to each program and going 3 and 4 times have really impacted the way you put a team together. And I thought it really impacted the quality of play on the field in week number 1. Now, maybe that's not something. The ratings are astronomical, massive audiences, so it's not like anything's going to change here. People are still watching the games in droves, but it certainly impacted, I thought, the quality of play in week number 1. What did you think?
Well, I don't think there's any question. I think look at Miami. I mean, Miami pulled out a victory, but Carson Beck, because of the elbow injury, he's essentially been practicing for a month. I mean, with these teammates, and I think even the end for Notre Dame at the end of that game, you get in a 2-minute drill. Now you got a young quarterback, but you saw the noise environment, and he didn't get off enough plays. And I think those are all things that come with experience, come with time in a system, and it for sure affects these games. And I think as we go into even this weekend, there's not a lot of great games into week 2.
Mm-hmm.
Are these teams really who we think they are? I mean, it's like we're projecting of, okay, this is how good Texas is going to be preseason number 1. Like the preseason rankings, I would say this, because of the transfer portal, mean even less than they did 5-10 years ago, where we're like, really? They're ranked this high? I think you can't do it. You're just really guessing, and you're hoping that the roster comes together, because there's a lot of different elements on becoming a great team and winning a national championship, besides just, hey, these are the best players that we can get. You also got to be like, you know what? Does that player want to play with the next player? Is he all in on the team and not necessarily all in on the me part of the game? And I think that we're seeing some of that, this part of the season. And but it was a hell of a weekend. I just thought it was, just typical overreaction.
Oh my gosh,
weekends as
so
we
much
get,
overreaction.
Arch Manning can't play anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sitting there looking, I'm like, wait a sec, Texas had 133 more yards of offense than Ohio State. I mean, so, you had South Carolina, which looked by score, they dominated Virginia Tech, but they lost in time of possession. There was 8 yards of difference on offense. I mean, if you really just kind of look at the numbers, you're like, of different games, you're like, wow, that was really a close game. Oh, by the way, there was a couple interceptions, and that's the difference of these games early in the season. But I think, I thought it was a great first weekend. Now, week 2 leaves some want and some better games, I would say that.
Yeah, I love the scheduling. I love 6 of the top 10 playing each other. That was awesome. And, all these big brands meeting each other. I agree with you. That was great. The level of play wasn't always great. And the transfer portal, I think, has a lot to do with that. But you're right. There's a ton of overreactions. As it relates to the top 25, everybody gets bent out of shape about this, about ranking teams this early in the season. I want to remind everyone of this. These rankings mean nothing. They never mean anything. They're not going to mean anything at any point during the season, the AP or the coaches poll. They're basically marketing for a university is what they are. What matters is when the College Football Playoff Committee, shout out to my man Wesley Walls, who's now on the CFP committee, by the way, that's what matters. When those guys rank the team, I think there's a dozen of them that are ranking the teams. When those guys rank the teams, and they get in that awesome hotel near Dallas, Texas, and they rank the teams, that's what matters, and that doesn't happen until late October, early November. So don't get too bent out of shape about where teams are ranked and who's ranked where, because it doesn't mean anything. And it's like Nick Saban said on ESPN last week, this is based off of what you did last year. It has nothing to do with what you're doing this year.
Yeah, it's based. Yeah, there's no question, and I think it's more for building up marquee games in television and getting people to watch. Oh my God, this is a top 10 matchup.
Yeah,
Let's
exactly.
watch this game. Does that top 10 matchup turn into a great game like the Miami Notre Dame game? Yes, some games do. Some games, maybe not so much. But you know what? It's great to have college football back. For all of the kind of the changes and things like that, I think that it'll settle down as we progress during the season, and we'll find out, if some of these teams are worthy of this preseason ranking, and I think we've already found out some probably aren't.
Mhm.
We've also found out, and I said last week, heat and humidity will decide or have a big determining factor in the Miami Notre Dame game. They're eating popsicles on the third quarter of the game in Hard Rock Stadium, and they were dead. They were absolutely dead. It was just awful outside, the heat, and Notre Dame. There's no way they could have prepared for that. I think we saw the same thing when Boise State traveled to USF. USF played great, but at some point in time, the environment affects the opponent when they're not used to it, and so we'll see as we progress through the season.
Okay, now I just said don't overreact. All right, now you just gave a great example. Arch Manning didn't play well in his, at least he did start a few games last year, but now as the first string quarterback of the Texas Longhorns, he did not play well against Ohio State. But people overreacting to that need to relax, and there's a lot of overreacting going on. But what should we hit the panic button on after week one? After I've told everyone not to overreact, let's do some of that coming up next here on Touchdown Radio Tailgate. He's Gino. I'm Taylor. We're getting ready for week number 2 of the season. Iowa and Iowa State is the Touchdown Radio Tailgate. It's the Touchdown Radio broadcast of the week, and that is coming up at noon Eastern Time on Saturday. We'll get you ready for that here in a few minutes. First, Gino, I'm not even going to give you options. I'm just going to ask you what comes into your head when I say you should be really worried off of what you saw in week 1.
Line of scrimmage loss of Alabama versus Florida State.
Nailed it. Yeah, that's it.
You expect physicality that Nick Saban brought into that program, and I mean, you go on the road. It's not like you're going on the road and playing somebody that doesn't have a history and you don't think is going to be a good team. I don't know if Alabama, the players, were reading too much of or just putting too much into Florida State's bad season a season ago. But, that was a team a couple of years ago we were talking about in the playoffs, and they had a bad down year. They went in the portal. They apparently got the right players, but really they did not match Florida State's intensity at all, and they got beat at the point of attack. And I think that that was one thing that I would say is concerning. Yeah, but let's go back. Like this overreaction. Like I said, when Notre Dame lost, they lost to Northern Illinois last year, and we're in the national championship game.
Right.
So things can be fixed,
no question,
across the board of
Good
anybody.
point.
And that's where I just let's not overact this. Let's enjoy the game. But that was concerning.
Yeah.
Okay, now does Alabama have to make some adjustments? And they do. And I think at some point in time, besides making adjustments, players have to look in the mirror and say, all right, am I going to put up with this, or am I going to be the more physical aggressor at the point of attack? And it's on them. The coaches can only point you in the right direction. It comes down to the guys that line up and say, you know what, I'm going to beat that guy, every single play at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think that's really good analysis. I think that Alabama has some fixable issues, to your point. And I just want to say this real quickly about Kalen DeBoer. I think that he is a really good person. I've always enjoyed my interactions with him. He used to do a ton of interviews with us here on Channel 84. I know he still does some of those with the daily shows, but when Greg McElroy and I were doing a daily show here, he would come on and he was just a joy to be around. And I've always been so impressed by everywhere he's went and how he's been able to quickly build a winner there. I have to tell you, I was rather concerned when he got this job. And I think it's not impossible for a man from Arkansas or West Virginia or from Texas or some other part in the South to come to Alabama. For a man that grew up in South Dakota that has never spent any time in the Deep South, transitioning to the Deep South, I think is a huge cultural difference that is hard to overcome. And this is somebody from Mobile, Alabama saying this, okay? So I'm not taking a shot at my own people. I'm just telling you the truth. So that's the first thing, getting used to where you live and your surroundings and who you're dealing with. I thought that was going to be a big transition for him. Not one that he couldn't overcome, but I thought he'd be big. The thing that's shocking to me is his inability to get through to these players. And last year, I don't think it's fair because that's a hard transition from Saban to DeBoer. But the fact that his players were physically whipped in the first game of year two was, and you nailed it. I mean, they just got crushed at the line of scrimmage throughout the game. I do think it's possible that that's fixable as the season goes along, and maybe he's able to connect to these guys better. But that's surprising, and I think he has an uphill battle at Alabama long term, but we'll see how that shakes out. The bigger issue,
really,
I think.
See, just to add on that is you feel sorry for who's ever replacing Nick Saban.
Oh, sure. No,
I mean, listen,
exactly.
You're a Dolphins fan. When
Right.
when Shula retired, it was like you don't want to be the guy that that replaces the guy. You want to be the second guy.
No question.
Because then it's a little bit removed, and you add in some of the extra things, obviously, and that's a big difference. But
yeah, there's no question, and you're right. It's a hard position to be in, no matter what. But I think they have some fixable issues there at Alabama, and it'll be interesting to see how they do against Louisiana Monroe this weekend. And then as the season progresses, that game in Athens in a few weeks between the hedges, we're going to learn a lot about Alabama's desire to play hard here in the weeks to come. And I think those are fixable. But Gino, I don't know that what's going on in Chapel Hill, North Carolina is fixable in 2025. There is a massive talent problem there after watching that game on Monday night. And look, when you're going to bring in 70 new faces to a program, that's going to be the case. And certainly Bill Belichick or anyone that takes over a program is going to need time to do it. Now, how many years is Bill Belichick going to be the head coach at North Carolina? How quickly can he build a program and bring talent into the program? It's not there in 2025. I mean, maybe next year he has a more talented roster, but I just don't know how this is going to shake out. I have to be honest with you. It's been head scratching since the day he took the job. It was shocking to see how bad of a product they put on the field on Monday night. And I don't know how this is going to turn out. It feels like this is going to take years to build the kind of program Bill Belichick would want. And is he going to be doing this job for years? This is fascinating to me.
Well, it was inconsistent play, I would say, quarterback. There was a talent gap. But let's kind of be honest. He's not going in there. It's almost like you don't have the first pick in the NFL draft because you're one player away from making it a deep run in the playoffs and getting to the Super Bowl. And I think that coaching changes are made normally not in great times. And I think that North Carolina made that decision, but there's no question that the guy knows the game of football. But essentially, it comes down to, it's the Jimmies and the Joes when you line up on the field. And TCU exposed, North Carolina, I thought it was a lack of speed. There were some, talented players on TCU that were just fast and looked a lot faster than anybody on North Carolina's defensive side of the ball. And I think that North Carolina's offense, I don't think the quarterback played particularly well. It seemed like when Max Johnson went in there, he completed some passes, moved the ball pretty well. But but yeah, there are things that a lot of coaching points, if you will, for for after watching that game. But yeah, the social media overreaction or reactions are pretty harsh.
Yeah, they are. Again, those are two situations that we'll be watching closely here in 2025. There's one other team I need to mention, and this is to the point we were making in the first segment about the top 25 and it being meaningless. I don't know how many of you stayed up late last Saturday night and watched Fox until 2 p.m. or 2 a.m. Eastern time. Maybe if you're on the West Coast, you saw all of this. The fact that the Utah Utes were not in the top 25 going into the season is just an absolute joke. I mean, and look, I'm not trying to say UCLA is a world beater or anything, and Nico Iamaleava's got his own issues when it comes to the transferring and the whole Tennessee UCLA situation and how he played in week number 1. Utah had 30 first downs. UCLA had 14. Utah had 492 total yards. UCLA had 220. Utah won the game 43-10. Utah is one of the 10 to 15 best teams that played football last Saturday, and they were not in the top 25. So, to your point, these rankings mean absolutely nothing.
Yes, that was an impressive performance, and it kind of, you look at it, it's, quarterback play gets better when you're in a system, right? When you're running plays over and over again.
Yeah.
Decision making comes quicker. You're getting the ball out quicker and things like that. But yeah, based on early returns, you'll say Tennessee was right in not agreeing to the shakedown.
All right, coming up next, we turn our attention to week 2 and the schedule for the rest of September and the big games that we'll be paying attention to as Touchdown Radio Tailgate continues. Gino and Taylor with you here for week 2 of the college football season. There are a few games on Friday this week, but almost all of the games are on Saturday. I know it's get out of the way of the NFL kickoff game, the Eagles and the Cowboys. You don't want to compete with that, Gino. So there's no Thursday game, not a lot of midweek games going on this week. Few games on Friday, then the rest are on Saturday. That never hurts my feelings. I love just a big Saturday tilt.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's awesome, but there were so many great storylines going into week 1. And week 2, I think there are a lot less, but there are still some intriguing issues. I mean, one of the marquee ones, Michigan and Oklahoma, and I'm like, okay, how's this a marquee game, Taylor? They're both in the top 20, right? Oklahoma was 6-7 last year, and Michigan was 8-5.
Right.
I mean, is that really a marquee top 20 battle? We don't know, but if I'm looking at their last year's schedule, I'm like, this really isn't a top 20 matchup. This is like survival of coaches, But this is kind of where we're at. I think USF at Florida is a game that kind of intrigues me. USF played really well in week 1 against Boise State. Florida has been hyped up as, obviously they're gonna do this and that and the other, and it's like, okay, are they going to, or is it going to be, lay an egg at home and things like that? I think Baylor at SMU. I mean, Baylor had high hopes and then kind of got throttled by Auburn at home, and then they traveled to SMU, which has got a lot of returning players from a team that went to the ACC championship game. And then I would say Iowa State. Rocco Becht has been on fire. I mean, they won 11 games last year, and I would say that's probably, like Utah, an underranked team, even though they are in the top 20.
Good matchups there that you just referenced, and the brands of Michigan and Oklahoma obviously will get a big audience on Saturday night. One other dimension that, and this is still hard for me to get used to, what networks these games are on and what conferences they're in. There's a lot to get used to these days. Number 6 Oregon, who plays in the Big Ten, is playing Oklahoma State, who I believe is still in the Big 12, and that game is going to be on CBS at 3:30 on Saturday. This is not the SEC on CBS. This is the Big Ten on CBS, and the Oregon Ducks are representing the Big Ten on CBS. If I would have put you in a time machine 5 years ago and said that is what's going to happen, you would have said, Taylor, stop drinking. But here we are. And then on top of that, NIL and transfer portal and all of that, and Coach Gundy is ripping Oregon for how much more money they have to spend. Dan Lanning's response to that, I don't know if you saw it earlier this week, Gino, was just priceless. He's like, some people, spend money to win and some don't, basically, just to paraphrase. But that'll be a fun exchange between the two of them when that game's over with.
It's the response should be, you get what you pay for.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest. I mean, you look at the guys in the NFL that are making a lot of money. You get what you pay for.
Exactly.
So it's just kind of trickled down into the college football game, if you will. I would just say, I don't begrudge anybody spending any money on any players or anything like that. I just wish of the top, 65, 70 teams that we think could probably put a roster together to get to the playoffs and have a chance to have a factor into who's going to win the national championship. I would hope the powers that be over the course of this thing, which is now, we figure out some way to kind of level the playing field, because it's like all these schools are trying to get to the Big Ten and the SEC, because that's where the most money and the most payout from the conference comes from.
Right.
So I think I would just hope that,
yes,
we get to something where, there's a level or more level playing
I agree
field.
with you. And I think that's what Coach Gundy was ultimately trying to say.
Yeah.
But it still was rather humorous. And I'm with you. That South Florida game, SEC Network, by the way, 4:15 kick with my man Dave Neal on the call there in the Swamp on Saturday, could be one of the better matchups. Arkansas State, West Virginia at Ohio, Houston at Rice. We have some fun, I guess you would call them, rivalry games. North Carolina's playing at Charlotte on Saturday. So some games in the region, or I guess in each other's region, that could be interesting. UCLA is at Dan Mullen and UNLV, who's already 2-0. Those will be some intriguing matchups to follow. Okay, a couple other things I got to ask you about. Mississippi State is hosting Arizona State, and evidently Kenny Dillingham cannot find anywhere to stay and eat in Starkville, Mississippi. So he is making some comments about that, and he said the casino is about the only great place that's anywhere near there. And I started dying laughing because my man, Mr. Toretta, knows that casino very well.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that casino, and right up the road is Como's Steakhouse, and there ain't a person that's ever been there that will say that's not a great meal.
Shout out to our friends in Tunica, Mississippi. Yes, but I love how Arizona State is ringing cowbells in each other's faces during practice this week, trying to get ready for that matchup and start Vegas.
I will say this. I'm a huge fan of Leavitt, the quarterback, and if you have not watched Arizona State, watch this game for nothing else than the talent that's under center at Arizona State, because Leavitt is a stud. He's an athlete. He's a great thrower of the ball, but big fan of the quarterback.
Okay. That Iowa State matchup that you're going to is one of the best environments in college football, and I'm very jealous that you're going to be there to call it at high noon, at least noon Eastern, 11 a.m. Central, there on Saturday. I have to tell you, if I could pick one game to go to this weekend, Gino, Columbia, Missouri. The Kansas Jayhawks are playing the Missouri Tigers again. It has been more than a decade since these two bitter rivals have met, and it's happening again at 3:30 Eastern time on Saturday. I don't know if you know this, but I feel like
Danny Manning showing up?
No,
I think this
so.
is more of like the hated rivalry of basketball.
I don't. I would not go there if I were Danny Manning on Saturday. He will not be welcome. But as the unofficial television voice of the Missouri Tigers, at least last year, every time they sing Mr. Brightside in the fourth quarter, the entire student section says something about Kansas that cannot be repeated here on this broadcast. And they haven't. None of those students ever have played Kansas. They don't even remember playing Kansas. They hate Kansas so much because their parents told them to hate Kansas. And now they get to play this game again. I love it. Mizzou played Oklahoma last year for the first time in a long time. They played K-State for the first time in a long time 2 years ago, and now they're playing Kansas. If there's one thing that all of this shakeup in college football has done, it has given us some of these old school rivalries back on occasion. We have Texas A&M again on a yearly basis, which I love. And I love that we have Kansas and Mizzou again.
It's like what's old is new again. People are like, oh, why would they play each other?
Right.
Well, they used to be in the Big Eight. You know what I mean? And it's just, it's kind of, years ago that, when Illinois would play Mizzou in St. Louis, and you see that venom of these schools close together that had some kind of history that we've lost with conference realignments. And it's almost like you bring back a game like Kansas and Missouri, and if you're over 40 some years old, oh wow, they used to play all the time. Or Nebraska and Texas, Nebraska and Oklahoma, which we've lost in Nebraska going to the Big Ten, and those are all kinds of things that I was hoping with the reorganization or the reconferencing, whatever you want to call it, of all the different teams to different conferences, that we were going to get more of those games and less of probably some of these other games that are happening that are just going to be one-sided, directional blowout against a directional blowout school. And but we haven't taken that next step to get to kind of instill that. I mean, I think college football is a regional sport. It's got national appeal. It's got national appeal because those regional rivalries.
No question.
It's like,
yes.
Oh my God, I remember Johnny Rodgers, in those Nebraska games against Texas or Oklahoma, and it has a national appeal. But when you don't have that local rivalry, I would probably argue that it's less of a national appeal. Like
you nailed it.
West Coast,
you did. Huh? Yeah, in the NFL, it doesn't matter who play. It doesn't matter what time zone you're from. Anybody can play anybody. It can be a huge game, and everybody gets connected to it. In college, it matters where the game is playing and who's playing in it for everyone to be interested in it. And you're right. It's regionalized, bitter rivals playing each other, and that has a national appeal. I think NASCAR sort of lost that when they started going to places where NASCAR was not a big deal. People all over the country love watching a NASCAR race that's in the Deep South or somewhere where it matters. I think you're spot on with that. Well, let's pick some of these games. Already off to a little bit of a lead here. We'll make picks here in the next segment of Touchdown Radio Tailgate. It is Touchdown Radio Tailgate, and it is time for the picks. Last week, Gino picked South Florida. I picked Boise. Whoops. I picked the Auburn Tigers. Gino picked the Baylor Bears.
Oh, killing me.
I know. That was a big... I picked the Ohio State Buckeyes. You picked the Texas Longhorns.
Oh, I thought that one I forgot about.
We both picked Alabama and lost on that one, so I went 8-2. You went 7-3 in week number 1 of the season. Okay, here we go. Week number 2. Number 11, Illinois, is playing at the Duke Blue Devils at Wallace Wade Stadium in Durham, North Carolina. This game is on ESPN, a noon Eastern kick, and Illinois is favored by 3.5. G, who you got?
Oh, I'm going Illinois. I think they're the more physical team. I think they'll go on the road and take care of business.
I agree with you there. Okay, we're going to step outside of the top 25 for this next pick. We actually are staying in the region here, and we're going next with the Virginia Cavaliers playing at the NC State Wolfpack, some 30 miles away from Wallace Wade Stadium at Carter Finley Stadium on ESPN2. The Pack is a 2.5-point favorite over the Wahoos, and I'll take them. I'll take Dave Doran and NC State at home against the Cavaliers.
I'm with you there. I think NC State's a little bit better team than some people think.
Okay, now he's the only man in the business that picks the games he's calling. Next up, we go to Iowa State. As well, now the game has gone away from me here as I was trying to. Oh, it's because I went to week 6 instead of week 2 for some reason. Here we go. Iowa State is a 12 o'clock kick. It's on Touchdown Radio Network, and you can listen to it here on SiriusXM. It's also on Fox. And Iowa State, the Clones at home, are a 3.5-point favorite at Jack Trice Stadium in Ames, Iowa. Give me the Hawkeyes on the road.
Really? Wow. Iowa's won 6 straight at home or on the road at Jack Trice, and you're going with the Hawkeyes. This is the earliest meeting of these two teams. Usually it was at the end of the year. Road teams won the last 5. Not happening this week. Iowa State's going to protect home turf and win.
Okay. All right. There you go. With Iowa and Iowa State. Next, we go to Lexington, Kentucky. The Ole Miss Rebels are coming to Lexington. Rebels look really good at home, albeit against Georgia State last week in Oxford. Now they travel to Lexington. Kentucky was sloppy last week against Toledo. Zach Calzada overthrowing a lot of receivers. Give me the 20th ranked Rebels winning in Lexington. This is a 9.5-point spread, by the way. Ole Miss is the favorite. We're picking these games straight up. I'll take the Rebels.
I'm taking the Rebels too because they're on Touchdown Radio next week against Arkansas.
cheer for the radio, cheer for the broadcast next week. We did talk about this game just a little while ago, and I cannot wait to watch it, connect to it on Saturday as KU and Mizzou play at 3:30 Eastern Time on Saturday. The Kansas Jayhawks going in hostile territory to play the Missouri Tigers. I don't know that this Missouri team, Gino, is as strong as they were last year against KU. Mizzou is favored by 6.5 at home against KU. Who you got?
I'm going to take the home team. I would agree. I think this is one of those games where you're like, I think they're pretty evenly matched. So I'll take the home team, and I think Missouri's going to win this.
Man, this is a tough one for me. I'll take KU plus 6 and a hook, but since we're picking it straight up, give me Missouri. You're going to get mad at me for picking this next one, but I just have to do it because I am really intrigued by it. After watching what happened on Monday night, I really have no idea what we're going to get in just north of Charlotte, North Carolina, on the campus of the UNC Charlotte 49ers, as Bill Belichick and the Tar Heels play at Charlotte on Saturday night at 7 o'clock on ESPN+. I wish they were putting this game on television because I really don't know what's going to happen here. I'll take the Tar Heels, Gino, but I'm not comfortable. I'm not confident about it.
I thought you were taking it just because you wanted to take the 49ers, but I'm with you. I think Belichick rights the ship here, and but yeah, that is must-see TV that's not on TV.
7:30 on ACC Network. This is on TV. Our guy Wes Durham is calling it, the former voice of the Vanderbilt Commodores. So now he's on TV calling the Doors at Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech's a 1.5-point favorite at home at Lane Stadium against Diego Pavia and the Commodores. Who you got?
You know what? I'm going to take the road team here. I'm going to take Vandy on the road. I think that they're going to do it. They're going to do it.
Man, I thought that's where I might pick up a game on you because I'm taking Vandy as well. I like Pavia. I like their big tight end. They've got a much better offensive line. Now being in Nashville, there is a buzz in the community about the Commodores this year. I'm taking Vandy. They just have to get through Inner Sandman, and then after that, strap it on and get ready. I'll take Vandy in that one. Okay, Arizona State is going to Stark Vegas, Mississippi. The 12th-ranked Sun Devils are 6.5-point favorites at Jeff Lebby's Mississippi State Bulldogs. I'm taking Arizona State, but because of future SEC Network broadcasts, I would like to be wrong here.
Well, you heard my endorsement of Sam Levitt, the quarterback for Arizona State, so that's who I'm taking.
Next up, it's the Michigan Wolverines, ranked 15th in the country, playing at the 18th ranked Oklahoma Sooners. Oklahoma is a 5.5-point favorite at home, Gino. This is a 7:30 kick on ABC on Saturday night. Who you got?
I just touched on it. I mean, Oklahoma 6-7 last year, Michigan 8-5. I think probably both of these teams are overranked at this point of the season. Mateer's the new quarterback for Oklahoma. Who are they? Underwood's a true freshman on the road for the first time. I'm going to take the environment and the Oklahoma Sooners at home.
Gosh, we have way too many picks that are the same this week. I was hoping we'd have some more disagreements here, but I'm with you on Mateer. I've been around Cam Ward obviously a lot now, calling the Titans games, and Mateer was the backup to Cam Ward at Washington State. So I've learned a lot about John here in the last few weeks, and obviously he had some stuff off the field that he had to deal with a few weeks ago, and I think that's all been put to bed. But Cam tells me that this guy is made of similar stuff, and I'll believe in Cam. Hopefully a couple of times this weekend. I'll take Oklahoma over the Michigan Wolverines, and then finally the late night game, the Stanford Cardinal playing the BYU Cougars there in Provo on Saturday night. Let's see if we can find this one. The late kick. Gino always would get excited about these games because that meant that if it had been a rough week or on the road on the travel back from whatever game we were calling, we still had one more game to watch. And sometimes you'd put it up in the car for us, which I always appreciated.
Of course.
The Stanford.
Well, wait a sec. Is this game on Sunday? Are we picking Sunday games?
Well, I think that in some time zones it'll be on Sunday. Yes. It's a 9:15. It's a 10:15 kick Eastern. Stanford at BYU. I don't believe that they will pass midnight, so BYU will not have to stop playing to observe the Sabbath on Sunday. BYU is a huge favorite in this game against Andrew Luck's Stanford Cardinal.
Yeah, I would take the Cougar there. I mean, Stanford to lose to Hawaii, which has got lesser talent than either one of those two schools, especially BYU. But I think BYU takes care of business at home.
All right, so our only difference is the game you're calling, Gino. Iowa and Iowa State. How about that?
How about that? I thought I had a better week last week, but I forgot who I picked.
What else is new? 7-3.
Hey, by the way, wait a sec. I took Florida State in the points. I will say that.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Points last week.
You can get partial credit for that from last week. But yeah, just week 2 of the season. I'm sure it'll be a great environment with Iowa and Iowa State here in week 2, and we get ready for week 3. Hey, we just have about 30 seconds left, Gino. Are you a believer that teams improved the most from last week to this week?
Hopefully teams wake up. I don't know if I've ever had a team where it's, made market improvement from week 1 to week 2, but we were pretty good. Doesn't matter for 5 consecutive years. So I don't know if we had to make a lot of improvement from week 1 to week 2. I think that, you realize of how important the games are and every snap is. I think that maybe some guys wake up and take them more serious.
Well, I know that if you're an Alabama fan and you're listening to this, that you hope that is the case after what happened last week. Some other fan bases certainly feel the same way. And it'll be exciting to react to all of these games when we join you next week here on Touchdown Radio Tailgate. G, have a great call on Saturday.
You too, my friend.
Appreciate you. For Gino Toretta, I'm Taylor Zarzour. We always appreciate you listening to us here on Touchdown Radio Tailgate. Enjoy the start of the NFL season on Thursday, then on Friday, and on Sunday and Monday, and of course, week 2 of the college football season as well. And we'll be back to recap all of it as we get ready for week 3 next week on Touchdown Radio Tailgate.